Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching User Zero. I'm joined today with the creator, writer, director, and producer, and also the cast of User Zero. Thank you to Ria, who is the creator, Ria Tabakawala. And Ria, if you could introduce your cast.
Yeah, I'm so glad we have our fantastic lead cast with us. We have Connie Shee, who plays Dr. Naomi James, Jeremy Holm, who plays Simon Kinsler, and Neely Bassman, who plays Lauren Lee.
Thank you all for joining us for SeriesFest. My first question is pretty simple. What was the inspiration for the project, and how did you all get involved?
Sure, so I can start with that. So User Zero comes from a bunch of different places, but the general impetus was my life before becoming a filmmaker, which is I used to work in tech. So I spent a few years working in Silicon Valley and really wanted to write something that looked at the culture of the tech world, as well as the real sci-fi that's actually hitting our lives now. And even though we're looking at the near future with User Zero, everything's grounded in real neuroscience. I had a friend of mine from college who is a neuroscience, work with us and take a look and make sure everything felt accurate. So it really comes from a past life, and we're so excited to have these amazing actors join and make everything very real.
Great. And how did you all get involved as actors on the piece?
I just auditioned for it. I read the script and I thought it was so cool that, there was this complex, strong boss scientist who was also a woman of color, and it was being written and directed by a woman of color, and I just loved all of those aspects of it. And I think I auditioned once, and then Rio was like, you, and I was like, awesome. So that was pretty much it, and it was a really great experience.
Similar experiences, Jeremy?
The casting director that Ria used is a great lady named Allie Beans, and she had used me before a few times, and I read the script, and Ria and I came to an agreement, and the second I read the script, I knew how good it was, and living in New York City and working a lot in Midtown, you meet the people who move in this world, the stock market and the venture capitalists, and the folks who are really trying to leverage their money into the market. And so I feel like I knew who this guy was, but after talking to Ria and hearing of all her first person experiences, I just knew I had to play him. So we did it.
Yeah, my experience was very similar to Connie's. I auditioned and read the script and thought it was really interesting, something I'd never seen before. And in the audition, the questions that Ria asked me and the comments she gave me, I really thought, I want to work with her. I want to do this. And lucky for me, she felt the same way. So
it's always like this instant connection. Like you can see a lot of actors and see a lot of talent, but sometimes it's just, when I chat with actors, it's read the sides, that's great, but it's when you have that conversation after, that's when And so with Connie and Neely, right after they performed the side so beautifully, we just had a great conversation, and the conversations when I'm like, that's the one. And Jeremy and I, kind of what he said, we had a great phone call, and again, great conversation, and I was like, he's the one. So it's just that connection.
Well, anyone who watched knows that you built an incredible team. I'd love to dig a little deeper into the characters. I mean, this pilot is packed. There's a lot packed in here, and I think there's a lot packed in character-wise. And one thing that I really caught on to, and this is in a lot of media, but especially in User Zero, we see a lot of different sides of each character in a short amount of time. I think especially in the workplace, we kind of see them at their high, we kind of see them at their stress point. And I'd love to know for each of you, and even just from the writing process, what was it like to balance out those different sides of the character and make sure that you're showing that person as a full person?
I'll take that real quick. I think that any actor who's approaching a role, you have to do a lot of thinking and working before you ever get on set, because you have no idea what's going to be thrown at you, what the physical environment will end up being like in spite of what was written. But in this case, everything, all the sets that Rhea was able to build and find with her team were kind of what you dreamt of when you read the script. For me, being in all of my scenes with Connie, that for me, that was like the touchstone of who Simon was, because he's relating to her the whole time. That and the design, the Lido design, the set decorator, and all the folks that, it was like she had $1 million budget just for that stuff. So for me, that really made it real and more easy to perform.
Yeah, I second that. The design was incredible. It made it all feel very, very real. And also Rhea is super collaborative. And before we even got to set, we met up and talked so much about the script and about Naomi's backstory and her history with her mom. And so it was really great because, Rhea cared about all of that, and we were able to dive into that together, even though it's not, explicitly in the script. It's still in my character's history. And so, yeah, it was really, really great getting to explore all that.
I agree with all that, and I would add also that in the writing made them real full characters, even things that weren't necessarily happening in front of your eyes. It was very easy to create the backstory, which Rhea and I also chatted a lot about. And so we came to set really knowing who these people were that we were portraying. And the writing really added to that. It opened up my imagination to create a whole world of this very real, conflicted human being. And you get to see many sides of her, which I think really happened for most of the characters in the script, in the writing itself. So I thank her for that. It made it very easy to create a full, complete history and bring that to set.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a huge believer that for any piece of writing, it's the collaborative relationship you have with the people who are, bringing those characters to life, and making sure that you have equal buy-in and you're on the same page. So I always like to spend time with the cast before we even get to set and talk about the scripts. Like, we'll sit there and, when we can, I like doing it over a margarita or a cocktail or a glass of wine, so we're all kind of relaxed, and just go through everything and ask, well, how do you feel about it? And, again, from going back to having had a great conversation during casting, I knew that like this set of actors would meet me halfway, and oftentimes met me beyond halfway, and like just surprised me with what they brought to the character. And so I think everything you saw on screen is part writing, but a lot the souls of these amazing actors and what they brought to their characters.
I'm glad you brought that up, because creating anything is a process. And when you have a collaborative team, a lot of things change over time. And that gets you kind of to the final project that people are seeing today. I'd love to know a little bit about what are some maybe major changes that happened throughout the way.
Let's see. Well, I think in the final we cut one or two scenes, but in general, I think everything, it's so hard because like you make these little changes along the way. So I'm like, I don't really remember what it was before and versus what the final product is now, but it just, each layer gives a little bit more meaning. And I think even just, I think one of the things that I found with this is it ended up being a lot more funny and a little bit deeper of a character piece than what I thought it would be at the beginning. I was like very fearful that people would get bored because it's a lot of science, it's a lot of tech, it's a lot of like insider baseball on a world that I used to live and breathe in. So I was very worried we were nerding out too much coming in. And so I think for me, the biggest surprise was just how little people worry about the technology and the science, care a lot more about the dynamics between these people and the problems in their lives. So for me, that was like the biggest, I think, sigh of relief is I didn't make a white paper on the future of neuroscience.
It's definitely not boring. It's so engaging. And you talked about working with a colleague to kind of develop those neuroscience elements. I mean, you talked about how it's a really strong character piece, but you have technology as well as kind of another character or the systems at play. Can you talk about kind of working with that outside person to develop that script?
Sure. So, part of our funding was through this the Sloan Foundation, which promotes science and storytelling and film and television. So I did a lot of like research up front. We were given an advisor through the Sloan Foundation, and then after that, spoke with a friend of mine from college and would ask her questions. I'm like, is this real? Is this not real? And spent a lot of time. I had another friend who's who's a venture capitalist. And I asked her, I was like, so how do FDA trials work? Like, what happens, when would like a venture capitalist come in? And so between talking to folks on the science side, as well as the business side, started bringing in real people who like, this is their everyday life and talk through it. And then, what helped is we decided that we wanted to not do anything with green screens or anything like that. Like everything you saw, the UI on the iPads, the stuff on the screen with Lauren Lee's brain scans, like we built that. I had a classmate from NYU who's went to something called the ITP, I think it's Information Technology Program, where basically they're tying science with art at NYU. And so she was a grad from that program, and she helped me design all of it. And so through that, we were doing further research. Okay, what should a brain scan look like? What should we do here? What are things about a human's like, blood pressure or whatever we want to add in? And just that helped bring a lot of the research and what we thought we needed to show on screen, and pressure test what at least I knew, and had a lot of great people behind the scenes who added the realism to it all.
Wow. And then
I have no doubt that in our lifetime we will see multiple iterations of the invention that's in this pilot in all parts of the body. I mean, we already have it in some of the major organs, but we're going to have inner ear implants. We're going to have tumor radiating little nanobots that are insertable into the brain to take care of brain cancers. This all is going to happen. They already have the transcranial stimulation sensors that the military uses to train their snipers. This technology already exists in many ways, and I think that Ria's script is prescient of what's about to happen, and maybe already even happening in a lab somewhere.
Yeah, probably already happening. I mean, working on this project, this changed how you think about technology?
Well, I feel like, I remember that was actually one of the draws of this project, because Ria sent me research and articles, and I felt like a lot of the power of it was that it was based in reality and in real technology and real research. And I love that it's kind of this microcosm of the morality crisis that we're going to be having and that people are already having because of this. How much risk is worth it, and just all those kinds of questions. And so I feel like we need to be having those conversations at some point because it's here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very timely. I actually, when I got the script, before I even went to the audition, I was Googling the research because I was like, is this based on something that's happening right now? Because it felt like it was. So I was looking online trying to find, if this was going on, where it was, who was working on it, because it feels very real. And like you were talking about, all the tech that's in the final cut is extremely real and it definitely looks like it's something that's happening in a science lab right now. I thought it was.
Well, thank you all for joining me and for sharing User Zero with our audience.
Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you.
Oh.
Thank you.
So glad to be part of SeriesFest this year.